Hi guys, so something I've been wanting to talk about basically since I started this channel is white people having dreadlocks. And I know it's been talked about forever and it's still sort of a hot topic, but now that I finished all of the pointers that I could come up with in my first year, I thought I would finally talk about this. So basically, dreadlocks in their current form as all of these individual locks, which is the form that is popularized today, that came from black culture. So you'll hear a lot of black people saying that's our culture, we don't want other people using it. And of course other people don't mind. But the comeback to that is you'll have white people saying, I have Scandinavian ancestors, they were Vikings, and I'm doing this to feel closer to my ancestors. And I'm kind of like, well, I mean, your ancestors, I mean, that was centuries ago. And what else are you doing that makes you feel close to your ancestors? Like, it's just kind of a convenient reason that they found and latched onto. Dreads in the form that they used to be, like, it didn't look the same as modern day locks, and this is definitely something you can find more information on online than what I've managed to gather, but there were some called fairy locks that was just more like tangled hair. It wasn't like these tight ropes, like, the way they look today. There were some that were sort of like a beaver tail where the hair was just like in one solid mass, and that's not really what you're seeing today. So I think the form you're seeing today, that came from black cultures. So the whole excuse of saying, well, that's my culture too, and, even though I'm white, like, I don't really buy into that one. But then, of course, you can say it's a free world, you're allowed to do whatever you want to do, right? You don't have to ask anybody's permission for what you do to your hair. And you'll hear a lot of people saying, well, if I don't brush my hair, it gets tangled, so it happens naturally. So how can you sort of put a patent on this and say that only certain people are allowed to do it? Well, you really can't. It's just that you upset a lot of people if you do it anyway. So how do you work around that one? I also remember seeing a YouTuber who herself was kind of like mid-brown, like medium brown skin tone, and she said she was adopted. She doesn't know her parents, but obviously she can see that she's black, and she embraced having dreadlocks, but she seemed to feel that it was a black thing, that only black people should do it, but that if you didn't know you were black and you found out you had any bit of black heritage, you should hold on to that and use that as a reason to have dreads because they're just so great. Well, I mean, if she's adopted, what if she had been born as light as I am and she didn't know she was black? Would she then still have the right to do what she wants? And then you sort of get into this gray area where it's like, well, my hair is a lot coarser than people expect just looking at my skin tone. People with my hair texture are usually a lot darker. So you really can't base it on skin tone alone. Maybe you could base it on hair texture, but then there really are people who are, as far as they know, just white. And what if they happen to be born with a coarser hair texture? Are they not allowed to do it because they're not black? That's where you say, well, there's the cultural aspect. And I mean, for me personally, I feel like that I've tried everything else with my hair. First of all, like I've done relaxers, I've cut it short. I felt like there was no other low maintenance way to manage it. And this sort of feels like embracing my culture and identity in a way. It's like I'm embracing my blackness by saying, look, I'm just gonna wear my hair naturally and, deal with it. But I think what it really comes down to is even a white person can have really coarse hair. Even a black person can have really fine hair. The lines are really blurred there. There are people who are not raised in a black culture, even though they look black. There are people who are raised in black culture, even though they don't look black. You know, there's just so many blurred lines, and nobody really has the authority to force somebody to stop, especially when that person is white. You know, like if it was a black person doing something to piss white people off, I would be more concerned about their safety. But if it's a white person doing it, you kind of know they're going to get away with it. So what do you do in that case? Well, the suggestion I made in one of the groups a while ago was that they just kind of have a different significance to everybody. That, like, for a lot of black people, it's just a very natural hairstyle. It's something that, you know, it just looks like it's a part of you, and it's uh, you know, it's not like it's doing something flashy and what's the word, and trying to grab people's attention. It's just doing something to sort of embrace your natural hair, be comfortable and confident with yourself, but also to try and have like a low maintenance hairstyle where, yeah, it takes a lot of work, but at least on a daily basis, for the most part, you can just get up and go. And as an option where you can actually grow your hair out without having to relax it or just deal with it puffing up all the time, or all of that breakage. You know, like, I could tell my hair is definitely going to be able to grow a lot longer now that it's locked than it was when it was loose. I think part of the issue is that for some black people, having dreads is like a real journey, and that's what it's referred to. And some will say that you have to completely shave your head and start with absolutely nothing, you know, let the roots start locking and grow out. Don't even start with some length already. Some people are not as strict. Some people will let it grow out first so you don't have them sticking up all over the place, and then start locking, where there's enough weight for it to kind of lay down flatter. Some people will go and get their locks installed instantly so that they either have extensions or they have a loctician do something to their hair to have it separated and basically established in individual locks that will then later mature in their own good time. But I would say typically when white people get locks, and I think that applies to other races too, any other culture that might have finer hair texture, they can get locks too. They might need some sort of help, like back combing or chemicals or something to get it started. But when they do it, I think it really is more of a trend. It's just doing something to kind of stand out. It's going to be more like younger people. I think you're more likely to see flashy colors, have a more alternative lifestyle. Whereas for a black person, of course, they can do the colors and everything too, but it's more likely to be just like an ordinary part of their everyday life. And it's something that they might start with, you know, and they'll keep their hair like that for the rest of their lives. You know, it's not like, it's not a trend. It's not something you're just doing for a few years. Like, it's really, you know, that's it. So I think it's definitely important to understand that people have different reasons for doing it. You know, some black people are like, this is really a journey, and some not so much. For me, I kind of wanted to do something of a journey. I didn't want them instantly. I wanted to go through the whole process of experiencing them locking up. Some people just don't feel like dealing with that. They'd rather have them, you know, done looking clean and sharp from day one to make sure that they stay that way. This is what I posted in that group a while back. I feel that knowing that black people, whether they choose to get their hair locked or not, you know, they could have locks, they could have cornrows, braids, weave, cut short, afro, you know, loose curls, whatever. No matter what you choose to do, there's so many times when your natural hair is used as an excuse to have you suspended from school or fired from a job, and that is absolutely wrong. And I know it is something that can occasionally happen to white people as well, but it's not to the same extent, and it's not really the same thing, because like I said, like white people will tend to do it more to be flashy, whereas a black person is doing it because they don't want to chemically straighten their hair, and that's the best option they have, and that's what they're most comfortable with. And it's really not fair to limit a very small range of normal options. I mean, it's like the equivalent of saying, a white person says, I'm going to wear my hair down and loose, I'm going to put it in a ponytail, maybe I'm going to set it in rollers one day. It's just like a normal everyday hairstyle. It's a way of life, so it's when it's used as a reason for those sort of things, I tend to think that's not the real reason. It's just an excuse to cover, you know, covert racism. And my feeling is that if you, as a member of a different race, who can better get away with that kind of stuff, choose to have locks, then you have sort of a moral obligation to defend black people if you see them getting any sort of abuse for their locks. You know, if you see a black person getting any kind of hate for their locks and getting any kind of negativity, insulted or anything, you should step in and stand up for them. Don't just turn a blind eye and let it continue on. I think that's really the point. And of course, if somebody comes up to you on the street and gives you shit for your locks, they don't know what you're doing in your personal life, but they shouldn't be attacking you just based on appearances alone anyway. But still, you can use the privilege that you have to help better the situation of somebody who chose the same hairstyle as you. I think that's really the least you can do. So, when I posted that, a lot of people got very upset, and the post ended up being shut down because people just didn't want to hear it, and they were just like, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want, and I don't give a damn about anybody else. And that, I feel, is just not the right attitude. There's definitely a divide in the groups. There are some black majority groups, some white majority groups. I would say support everybody. They're very different demographics, very different type of people. Yeah, that's it. Just support everybody. If you're in a position where you have any sort of clout and people look up to you and respect you and will be swayed by you, then use that to change the status quo and improve the situation of someone else and raise them up. That's all I'm asking.